name is Ilona Biedroń. I'm really glad to be in Estonia with you and with all our participants online. This is my second time, and I'm really glad that we could spend this time in more of you directly, and especially in that very specific and beautiful country. So thank you for invite me. As I said yesterday, I am an water engineering. Nowadays, I am a vice president of Hektary for Nature Foundation in Poland. It's a very small one, and we just growing. Maybe something about myself. I work in water management, especially with preparing documents in water management in Poland, which were involved during beginning of implementing flood directive and firstly water directive. And I have many occasions to prepare many documents connecting to assess the state of environment, water environment, and I was a member of creating the first methodology to assessing flood risk and to preparing flood risk management plans. But unfortunately, I don't have an occasion to prepare these documents. The presentation and the topic of this presentation was taken by Eva Leś, and we with Eva jointly developed its content because I think that we both believe that environmental and flood risk management objectives should be combined. So thank you, Eva, for this. Plan of presentation, I just got two parts. One is more general. I put an attention for some planning documents based on flood directive, and then for some recommendations of European Commission to use better environmental options and nature-based solution. Also, I say something at the end of this part about the final and the results of analysis of the national flood risk management plans with some member states. The second part, as you can see, it will be some examples from Poland. I want to tell you about how we put close to nature measures in our flood risk management plan. I also give you some example from my PhD dissertation, what can we do, or what is a direction, what could be a direction to looking for the place to using such kind of measures. At the end, I tell you something about Campinos wetlands, about implementing so nature-based solution in this area. I think that I really thank you, my previous lectures, who said so many direct and I think very important things about understanding how flood risk management should work. If you want to find direct in flood directive, the key, I think that it's not so detailed. So I think that we should really take an attention for the points of the whole very short directive. But I think that the recital of this paper is very important because, as Anna said, our flood risk management plan, we create on the measures which should be connected with prevention, protection, and preparedness. In this creating, we could view to giving rivers more space. We've considered that in the place where it's possible, the maintenance of the restoration of floodplains is also the measures to achieve flood directives purpose. This is the 14th point of the recital. The second one is also connected with the movie, the solidarity principles, which is very important in managing in a catchment scale, regards flood risk management along water courses. In recital, we also could find information that development of river basin management plans and flood risk management plans, these are elements of integrated river basin management, and we should find common synergies and benefits to achieving not all also directives purpose, but also the environmental objectives of directive. The last point important in the recital, it's to use best practices, best available technologies, which couldn't be the really excessive cost. First step of the planning in risk management, it's a preliminary flood risk assessment. As Anna showed you in this circle, this is the first step, and in this assessment, the directive point that in this assessment we should include an assessment of potential and adverse consequences of future floods, and in this assessment we should put a special point to hydrological, geomorphological characteristics, including on this analysis floodplains as natural retention areas. In flood risk management plans, we don't find directly delegation to use nature-based solution, but we could find some words which could be connected with them. For example, it's important to focusing of the reduction of potential adverse consequences of flooding, of course, for human health, environment, culture, heritage, and economic activity, and if considered appropriate on non-structural initiatives or the reduction of the likelihood of flooding. These non-structural initiatives, it's, for example, local regulation in landscape, also some restoration measures. This connection and the environmental objectives and take care about water state, it is an element which should be taken into account in a cost and benefits analysis, and we just talk about it. There is very important a separate point article, which is a point to coordination, the needs of coordination. This directive with Water Framework Directive, and now I think that it's the best time to ask you, how do you understand the coordination and synergy of planning in flood risk management versus water protection? That's mean Water Framework Directive environmental objectives. I ask you to use 3 short terms to illustrate it. Okay, so for more of you, nature-based solution is the key. No pollution, also complicated. I really like that this nature-based solution are still in the center. I think that it's really okay that you put pointing difficulties, space for rivers, GIS, yes. No pollution. I think that it's interesting, especially in Poland. I think that this coordination I find only in step when we preparing these documents and measures, and when we in the same time try to talk with people or say to this in public consultation. But I think that we don't talk with people after it, and I think that from my point of view, it's not enough to showing people completely plans of measures and then ask people what they say. I think that people could be involved in the process of preparing of these plans and these measures. I understand that in the level of a basin, like Wisła or Odra River, it's difficult. I start to talking about an essence of sustainable planning in water resources management. And I think that the key, not only me, but a team with whom I work in this paper, the key to good management, to good planning, investment in water management could be for decision-making steps way, which based on a really deep analysis and diagnosis what is the problem and what is the root of the problem. And on the base of that information, in the first step, we should think about possibility solution, how to solve this problem permanently. This should be the base of planning in water management, maybe not only in water management, but generally, that we should know where is the problem and where is the source of the problem. And on the base of this, we should, of course, ask ourselves, is it possible for legal and environmental restriction? And of course, is it economically justifiable to carry out these hydrotechnical works to solve the problem? We also talk about this. We really should do something to do as mean of investment. The last point of this concept is to choosing the optimal solution, which is just more close to natural solution. But when we talk about restoration, which is connected with achieving purpose of Water Framework Directive, we should know what means free-flowing river. When we want to good understanding of this, this is the river which is without any barriers. For example, longitudinal barriers like in Cindy. But not only. In this slide, you can see that this connectivity with ecosystem should be not only longitudinal, but also lateral. Rivers should have a connection with her floodplain. Also, rivers should have a connection with groundwater, and of course, we should understand that each processes, hydrological processes, are changeable in duration. If we want to understand what is the role of based nature solution in flood risk management, I think that this movie exactly show us how we could manage of our catchment and how we can use nature to reduce flood risk management, in this case, especially in that city. Some recommendation, official documents, note by DG Environment, which is aims at bringing a win-win solution. We talk about also that we want to achieve two purposes, and in that case, aims of minimizing flood risk and achieving environmental goals. In the second hand, in this publication, which is in the beginning, starts with that, I think, very good and illustrated phrase that flood risk management should work with nature rather than against it. This is the phrase from white paper on adaptation to climate change, and in this document you can find an answer for many questions related to some key documents, information how to implement this better environmental options for flood risk management. You can find some example how to do this, and in annex you can find some extra examples and best practices. When we talk about closed nature measures, we think about nature water retention measures, and in all European Union documents you can find this phrase, because generally this what means that measures. This is measures which keep water in the nature. Generally, we could describe as very simple. And in that project, which is, you can find it on this website, you can find some catalog of this kind of nature water restoration measures in three sectors: agriculture, forest, and urban, and additionally in hydromorphology. Generally in agriculture, these measures focus on improving soil conditions in the field, diversity crops types, and using crop rotation and agroforestry, all with the aim of holding water and increasing water retention in the soil. In the forest, the main solution measures focus on forest protection and restoration, sustainable forest management, integrations of trees, forests into the landscape. These measures are particularly important, especially in the upper parts of the catchments, because the benefits of this is to regulate water flow and reduce flooding. In urban, we have a separate lecture on it, but generally all urban measures aim to regulate water runoff. The more effective measures are in this group of hydromorphology, because in this case we could plan measures in the scale of catchment, and generally it is indicated with river and its floodplain and any restoration activity, all for the purpose for regulating water, from reducing flooding, from slowing the discharge, and for keeping more water in a valley and in the catchment. In this website, you can find in 15 languages a translated version of a catalog of measures and example of this. Also some measure cards when you can find some description, some tables which are, I think, could be useful in any assessments because these tables relating to the scale of benefits, effectiveness in relation to potential biophysical effects, including water, mechanism of water retention, like slowing and storing runoff or reducing runoff, and you can see on this table ecosystem services provided and compatibility with the objectives of key environmental policy, water framework directive, flood directive, birds and habitats directive, and biodiversity strategy. Example, or rather knowledge source, it's also a document published by European Commission, nature-based solution from flood mitigation and coastal resilience. And in this document, you can find practical information for you or for somebody who wants to have better knowledge. It could be very useful. Two annexes of this document. First of it, it's a list of reviewed projects, and the second one is the portals database links to many website when you can find more information. European Commission in the end 2021 just published documents which relates to assessment of flood risk management plans. And I check in this document how it includes some information about nature-based solution and water retention measures. We could find an information that Luxembourg put on its flood risk management plans about 90% of this kind of measures, which is very impressive. Also, Austria have many activities, many measures which are still or planned or completed or on ongoing time. And if we look at the Poland, in our plans, we just have measures which are connected to the developed guidance and identification of priority areas for naturalization in river valleys. I think that this point indicates reference to the national program for surface water restoration, but it was an assessment of the first flood risk management plans. And in these plans, natural water retention measures was assessed that there was include almost of the whole plans. If we really put attention for the particular plans, we should answer how it work in that particular plans. For example, in Poland, in the directive, the type of flood risk management measures, natural flood management, it's a number M31. And in this type of measures, in our Polish measures, in updating of flood risk management plans, we have three type of measures, that is protecting or increasing catchment retention on wooded and forest land, on agricultural land, and on urbanized land. When we look at our numbers of measures in our just projects of first revision of our plan, we could see that we don't use any the second one of this type, so we don't have measures which is protection or increasing catchment retention on agricultural land, only connected with forest and with urbanized land. And when you look at this graphs, you can see that it is only maybe 1% in the huge scale. In these two, the most important basins, Odra and Vistula River, we could calculate very easy. There's more than 1,000 measures, but only less than 20, which we called close to nature measures. We could ask ourselves why our nature-based solution measures are not popular in Poland. I asked myself, so I think that maybe the scale of planned investments, hydrological investments, it's very popular. In this first map, you can see just a project of the first revision. It's just nowadays still in the process. In the second one, this is the plans of measures connecting with flood protection and flood risk management, which is involved in river basin management plans in the first revision. And in the last map, the gray one and this red one areas, this is the water bodies, river water bodies, their catchment, when we just plan investments in draw management plans. So you can see that we just planning many investments. But when we look at our challenges in restoration, you can see that more than 90% of our rivers need some restoration measures. And when I check it and I try to find information in what scale this program of restoration was involved in the second updating of river basin management plans. I just assessed that in 33% of river water bodies, there is any measures which could be some restoration measures and could help these water bodies to achieve a good state. In more than 50%, there is some restoration measures in our program, but I don't know it really if we implement it there, we really achieve a good state of these rivers. So maybe we have a problem with restoration, but maybe not only Poland. As I told you, answering your question, in this map on the left, you can find an information for what kind of rivers we prepared flood hazard maps and flood risk maps. It's a huge amount, really. Looking at this flooding zone, my PhD works. I take assessment on less than 60 rivers, and I just check 2 kilometers section, or how is the scale of flood extent, the channel of the water courses, because I think that when we talk about free-flowing river, and we want to have a space for water, and we want to use river valleys to just cover it by flood. I just wonder where is the possibility, or where is such cases when a flood is just within in the river channel. So I check it for the two scenarios. First one is a flood of probability 10%, and the red one, it's more than 50%. This is sections when the flood is within the channel. I also check it on the biggest flood, 1%. This amount also I think is huge because it's 34%. Only 30% the sections I really have a contact with the valley. Also many of them is in the middle of two streams. In this case, I think that this analysis in the whole scale, it could be the key how to find the places to give river more spaces. But of course, there are a problem of land use. We could also, in some kind of it's such scale, regional scale, we could also use some information about what is next to the river, because we could use it for the funding places where the restoration is possible, or where it couldn't. But if we have an example of the really local scale, here you can see what is the extent of flood. The blue one, you can see that the whole extent is generally in the bed, in the channel, but only on this way. Okay, on this place, it's some connection with valley, and in the flood of 1%, you can see that it's also in the channel, but in some places that they're on the valley. Very especially look at this point. This is no connection here, but there is the point where is the north, and probably here this flood. This is the reason why this flood is so in this area. I analyzed this place with putting some information about ownership, and this gray one, this is land, this is state owner agricultural land. I put an information of peatlands, of Myers, and this is the gray area. So it's really worth location to restore this place. I also put an information kind of land it is, and it is general permanent grasslands. So it show us that it should be the potential to restore it and to giving this river more space and contact with its value. The last point of my presentation, some example of restoration which take place from many years, more than 20 years. I want to tell you something and invite you on the website on kampinoskiebagna.pl, because it's our one of the national park in the heart of the Poland, and in this area there take place two live projects, and now just are ongoing. The last one, Campinos Wetlife, project, and generally for almost these 20 years in this area take place some measures, some actives which improving hydrological condition of wetlands of this national park. This is very important that this is the whole long process, because as you can see, the first live project, it was connected with protected butterflies, but the second one and the previous one is connected with wetlands, with rewetting. During so long period of time, administration of this place really have many activities connecting with social involvement and looking for a social acceptance of creating so restoration measures. Nowadays, they plan many of actions, especially gravel prisms in this canals, which could cause to rewetting mires next to these channels. Also, the red ones sections, it will be restored using nature-based solution. Why it's possible? Because you can see a map of poverty. Ownership of the park is in the most of these areas, and in each of these live projects they put a lot of budget for just this measure, because purchasing and buying lands, it's also one of the measures to connected to restoration. What else? I think that there's always problem of money, but not always, because in the heart of this wetlands, about here, there is some people who live there and they are farmers. They don't want to sell their land. And sometimes we think that they don't understand that we have so huge aims and we want to protect this nature for more of us, for society. And I have an opportunity to talk with them 2 weeks ago. And I think that I understand why they don't leave their land, because they're really happy people with really love to live there. And this land is their heritage, and this land is in their family from 400 years. So they really don't have a problem with restoration measures in Campinos wetlands, but they expected from administration of the park that they protect them for the floods. And I think that this family is also something special in that place. And I think that we should understand that people don't only think about money. For them, this place, living in this place, is something that make they happy, really. The last slides, this interview, which was take place in Campinos with these people, I prepared in a project which calls Waterlands. I am a coordinator of one of the Polish partners from SMOK. I think that it's important to say about something about this project, because as you can see, we have also some knowledge sites and action sites in Estonia. You can find it on the website www.wetlands.eu. It's very simple. The aim of the project which we realized in the program of the Horizon 2020 by 32 organizations from the whole Europe, is to develop best practices of social, economic and legacy models that will be used to effectively protect wetlands on a much larger scale, as it said our coordinator. And this is the end. Thank you for your attention.